Hello, everyone, and welcome to Medley Moments. I'm Edith Cooper, co-founder of Medley, and I'm so glad you're joining us for this conversation about leadership, connection, and the lessons that shape how we live in world. Today, I'm especially excited, and I'll admit, personally proud, maybe I'm a little bit of a fangirl, to be joined by Michelle Gass, President and CEO of Levi Strauss and Company. Michelle is leading one of the most iconic brands in the world through an incredible transformation, building on the incredible history and the 170 years of legacy, and also continuing to position and shape Levi's as a best-in-class, direct-to-consumer first denim lifestyle brand. She brings 35 years of experience in retail and consumer goods, from Starbucks to Kohl's, where she's built businesses, launched partnerships with brands like Sephora and Amazon, and created loyalty programs that became the industry standard. She's also on the boards of PepsiCo, on the National Retail Federation, and has been recognized as one of Fortune's most powerful women in business, I think, on a number of occasions. Beyond the resume, I will tell you personally, Michelle is an extraordinary human. I've gotten to work with and know Michelle. We both through PepsiCo, where we both serve on the board. And I've seen firsthand how she shows up, how she leads with heart, curiosity, courage, and quite frankly, overall smarts. One of the things I love the most about how you lead, Michelle, is that you see leadership as something that everyone can do and practice, not just something that comes with a title. And of course, I really am appreciative of Michelle because she keeps me on edge and current from a Levi brand perspective. I am always proud to sport my jacket. I have my initials on the cuff. I've worn it to meetings and actually have been known to roll up at black tie events because that's what I have in my bag. So Michelle, thank you so much for joining and for getting to know me and this audience at a different level. So
and
first,
Edith, let me just pause and say thank you so much for that very generous introduction. I'm just thrilled to be with you here. Back at you. I'm a huge fangirl of yours as well. And so really appreciate that you are one of our biggest brand advocates and ambassadors. And it's amazing to be with you on this program today.
Well, thank you, Michelle. And let's get started. I'm going to start in a place that I think will be a bit of a surprise to you because you are so humble. I want to start with setting the stage in May, where you gave the commencement address to your alma mater, Worcester Polytech Institute, with a custom fit denim cap to go with your gown. And I want to set the stage there because I think it's a good place to start for you to share what it felt like to go back to your alma mater and talk about your leadership journey. So as you prepared for that and as you spoke to these very eager, excited, about to be graduates, what elements of your leadership style have remained consistent through your career, first as a new graduate and now as the CEO of one of the most formidable retail brands in the world?
Oh, well, thanks for that question, Edith. It was such a tremendous honor to return to WPI, my alma mater, after 35 years. It was actually my 35th year anniversary as I gave that talk. And I will tell you, as I told those students, if anybody would have told me 35 years ago, sitting in that chair, that I would be here, I would have never believed them. A little bit about me. I grew up very humble beginnings. I grew up in Maine, grew up in sort of like a hardworking, gritty culture. Everybody had a job. I worked as long as I could remember, babysitting and bagging groceries, even in a bread factory. But I kind of knew I wanted more. And I was fortunate that I had, great high school advisors. I loved academics. I loved studying. I loved problem solving. And so I was able to be amongst the first in my family to go to a 4-year college. And I went into engineering because I figured that would be a good door opener to other opportunities. I will tell you, Edith, I did not have a clue what engineers did. There weren't any in my family that I knew of, but it looked good on paper. And I love math. I love problem solving. And back in the day, I think still to some extent today, there were very few female engineers. I mean,
That's right.
Back in the 80s, right? So I also felt like there was something super intriguing about bucking the trend and doing something completely different or unexpected. So that's what led me to WPI. And I think in a nutshell, the things I talked about to the students have been themes for me throughout my career. And it really does start with that curiosity and problem solving. I love a good problem. Maybe when I was studying engineering, it was more lots of math equations and I always had to try to find the answer. But now in business, it's problem solving around the consumer and really asking the questions. And that has led me to not just myself, but teams led to discoveries. And back in the day, that might have been opportunities to help make Frappuccino what a big business it became, or questioning when the data came back and we tested pumpkin spice latte and the consumer said, oh my God, this sounds disgusting. I don't want, it's like, no, there's something here, right? It's really unique. And it ultimately became a legend, and the rest is history. So I do think that curiosity, the asking questions has been an important part of my leadership philosophy. I'm also a big believer in humility. I never forget where I came from. And, that the sort of in me, I still see that person who was bagging groceries or working on the front line. And it's so important for me when I connect with people, and I spend a ton of my time out in stores, and I think Starbucks really ingrained that in me. Is like, we are there to serve them, not the other way around. And so as a leader, how do I set the conditions where people want to love what they do, where they show up and they feel like they're part of something bigger, and just never forgetting what it feels like to be in their shoes. And I mean it when I say I really value them, I appreciate them, and I want to hear from them. And so those are, a couple things. And then maybe the last piece I would say is the importance of being courageous, of being bold. And I think throughout my career, again, it's one of those, I guess, traits that I've honed and become more confident over time as I had the opportunity, as I worked with people. When I worked at Starbucks, I worked with Howard Schultz and Howard Behar and others who really embraced the sense of entrepreneurial spirit. And so, you get to try things, and most decisions are not company deciding decisions, right? They're mostly two-way doors. There's very few that are one-way doors. So, the reason we could do a pumpkin spice is because I could tell you a whole bunch of Starbucks drinks that ultimately didn't, stay on the menu. And so those are some of the principles that still, carry me to this day.
Well, I will tell you, I know that an extraordinary leader is someone who actually does what they say they should be doing. And that's how you show up with people, Michelle, whether it's fellow board members or ordering your coffee at Starbucks. You still want a good Starbucks in the morning, and you engage with people as they're humans, because in fact, as humans, we are all equal. But it is true that you travel in circles now that are pretty small, and very, very important. You are on the business council as a CEO, you're on the executive council. How do you show up in those rooms? And is it any different than how you show up leading your teams?
Yeah, it's a good question. I go back to the philosophy of servant leadership, and one of the first principles is authenticity. You are who you are. And so I want to show up as who I am. And I want others to feel that same way. So going back to, call it, let's start with my leadership team as an example. Like, the number one priority for me is to make sure that they feel like they have a safe space to be themselves.
Safety,
and
very important term.
Absolutely. And to ensure that they know that their voice can be heard, no matter what the situation is. Could be a crazy idea, certainly setting the conditions so we can have healthy debates. I mean, when we're dealing with tough decisions, and there's plenty of those, especially in today's world, you want to make sure that every perspective can be heard. And, I often find myself, if I haven't heard from someone around the table, it's like, okay, what do you think? Well, what do you think? So I think as a leader, it's part of the responsibility to draw that out. And then the balance is, because being a servant leader doesn't mean you're soft. It's actually quite the opposite. It's making sure that you get all the data you need, back to that, I guess, engineering mindset and problem solver. But then sometimes if there's not a clear decision, like, you're the leader and you're going to use the data and your instinct to say, this is the way we got to go. And I think leadership is also, it's really important to have clarity and decisiveness, as you're leading a team, a company. And I have the benefit of, again, lots of years, lots of unique situations where, like, it's more important to make the decision than not. Like, the consequences of not making the decision are actually worse than if you make a wrong decision. And I know often teams, like, they need decisions to move forward, and I never want us to be sort of the roadblock there. So whether it's I'm with the leadership team of Levi's, whether I'm in a town hall, I'm visiting a store, or if I'm sitting amongst the most prominent CEOs in the world, I think those principles hold true, right? Where we all have a job, we're all human
We all
beings.
have a job.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And whoever it is, I want to be myself, and I want people on the other side of that conversation or in the room to feel the same way too.
Well, one of the things that's really important about what you're saying is that you have a voice and you want to be on, and the best way to be on is to hold yourself personally accountable for delivering your best. And gosh, is it easier to do when you get to be authentic and real. But it always hasn't been that way for
Right.
you, Michelle. And or for any of us, it certainly hasn't
Right.
been that way for me. And I've gone through periods where I try to contort myself into sort of the dominant personality. It never worked, and so I abandoned that years ago. But how do you work yourself out of those awkward moments where you just don't feel like you're being heard? And this might take you back 20 years, but go there for
Yeah. Yeah. As you ask the question, what I think about is some of those early days, right? And again, I will go back to Starbucks because I feel like I was there 17 years, right? So many chapters of my, I guess, growing up and my career was spent there. And, I tell you, like, so go back, grew up in a small town in Maine. I go get my chemical engineering degree. I go to Procter & Gamble, which is also a very important part of my wiring, if you will, in terms of business management, problem solving, da-da-da. Then I go off to Starbucks in the mid-90s. Now, for me, coming from where I came from, like, getting to a manager job as an engineer would have been good enough. Like, wow, check the box. Like, I'm getting a
Yes.
salary I never thought I would see, right? Like, this is amazing. And I go over to Starbucks, and now I'm working in one of the coolest companies on the planet. Like, how did I land here? But I always want, like, do a good job every day, right? And apply the skills that you acquire along the way. I think for me, Edith, and I think it's important for young professionals as well, to be listening to those around them who have seen more, who have experienced more. And it was leaders, I guess, who saw things in me before I saw it myself, and who pushed me, and somewhere along the way, in some of the years, in my journey at Starbucks, I had leaders saying, someday you can be a CEO. And I'm like, what? Me? You kidding? Like, just couldn't even imagine it. But they're like, yeah, we see things. And then, they gave me the experiences that started to, build my confidence and build my experience base, because by the time you're in this role, you do have to have the right experiences and skills. But I think just being aware and present, like you might take advice on business, take advice on yourself when people see things in you, and then don't ignore it. Listen to it and say, okay, let's try this out. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but what's why not try it out?
And have there been instances where you've stepped up and it didn't work out? And how did you rally from those difficult moments?
I'd say that for me, I've been very fortunate that, again, surrounded by lots of great advisors and leaders and coaches, that I think my journey was, for me, the right one. But I would say, Edith, that my journey, the way I like to describe it, and I borrowed this I credit Patty Sellers from Fortune, a dear friend, and she talks about some careers are more like a jungle gym and not a ladder. And my career path was very much a jungle gym. So it wasn't like just go from this responsibility to this, to this, to this. I did take detours along the way, not knowing at times if it was going to be the right detour. And it's like, okay, am I taking this detour? And now I've kind of gone off the, gone off the rails or gone off the train. And luckily they have worked out. And I think my move here to Levi's is a perfect example of that, where I was a sitting CEO for 5 years at Kohl's, very big company, revenue at that time, revenue of like $18 billion. But had just come through the pandemic. I mean, had been going through some, challenging times. And I get this call from a dear friend, Chip Berg, who was the CEO of Levi's at the time. We were business partners because Kohl sold a heck of a lot, they still do, of Levi's. And he was getting ready to retire. We knew each other for a decade. We had really bonded during times like the pandemic. And he's like, hey, I'm getting ready to retire. What do you think? Would you ever consider coming to Levi's? And I was like, I love that brand. And I had utmost respect for Chip. Let's have a conversation. And what it led to was not a traditional, he retires, I come in as a CEO, but we did a 1-year transition and I came in as president. So I stepped back from CEO, public company, to be president for a year to then get myself ready to then take over. And and I think it was absolutely the right thing for me, for the company, for the brand, because it's Levi's. It's 173 years old. It has such heritage. I've only learned, I've only come more to appreciate how special and unique this company, this brand, this culture is. And so I'm very grateful that I had a year to go deep with the team and the business and the culture so that when we pass the baton, I could have a running start. But it is an example where, I could have said, no, like I'm only going to come in as CEO and, sorry, Chip, if that doesn't work for you, or do something else, or stay at Kohl's. But I saw it as such a rare opportunity, but it was a leap. It was a risk. But given all the experiences I'd had, I felt like it was a measured risk and the right one, knowing what I knew of the company and, of course, Chip and the board.
Well, excellent. And thank you for sharing those different points of your journeys. Let's shift gears a bit or continue on the conversation related to the jungle gym
Yes.
and talk about navigating uncertainty. There's a lot out there. The geopolitical environment, whether it's tariffs, the impact that AI will and has on the way we think about work and the way work will be done. But also AI is a real opportunity. All of these things, however, are going to create or might create change. How are you leading through this moment?
Yeah. Yes. I don't think we're ever going to, if there was ever a time that it was a little bit more stable, I don't think we're ever going back there, right? Just the metabolic rate of how the world operates today is just at a completely different pace and energy than it was even, 5 years ago. And so this is just how we have to operate. And I think making sure that as a leader, the people you surround yourself is resilient, right? Resilient to whatever comes our way. I do think for those of us, and I call it the privilege of leading during the pandemic, where there was no playbook, where the world changed overnight. I learned so much during that time. And one of the scariest moments for all of us, personally, professionally, the responsibility that went through that. So for me, that just gave me, I guess, call it resilience, but skills on how to navigate pretty much anything. And it starts with some of the principles we were talking about, which is creating that clarity for people, knowing where the true north is, what the priorities were, not being distracted by things that don't matter. And so for any issue that comes our way, you got to make sure that you are providing that leadership. The and to this, and one of the metaphors also that we use here is the microscope telescope. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but the microscope of how you're managing the day to day, and the telescope and not losing sight of really what your big strategy, your true north, so to speak. And for us at Levi's, our telescope is we want to become a best in class retailer. Levi's has long been known as a brand that sells bottoms, jeans, and largely sells it through other people, whether that's a Kohl's or a Macy's or an Amazon or, you name it. And globally, by the way, because we're in over 100 countries. We are making this big change to become a retailer. And while we'll still sell to wholesale, we want more than 50% of our business to be through our own stores and our own channel. We're making great progress. And we're doing that we're going beyond the bottoms. We want to be head to toe denim lifestyle, win with women, sell tops. And again, A lot of good proof points. Exactly. And we're making tremendous progress on all of that, and very proud of. We just posted our fourth quarter of high single digit growth. The business has momentum, and I share all that to say, like, that's our strategy, right? We want to become a much bigger company, and we still want to have all the heritage of what Levi stands for, but we want to be known as this head to toe denim lifestyle brand. You can't lose sight of that and driving your strategies when you're navigating whatever is hitting us from every angle. So take tariffs. That's a good example. It wasn't like we put the pause button on all our product development and all our denim lifestyle work to say, okay, everybody, we don't have time for our strategy. Everybody needs to just be focused here on the tariffs and what we're going to do. No, like, we got to do both. And let's make sure we do both really well. So again, kind of like any kind of initiative or surprise that you get, we quickly rallied. And it's the decisiveness and the maintaining calm through those moments. And when the tariff thing first came out and the numbers were staggering, it's like, guys, nobody panic. We're going to sort this out. We formed a task force. We had the right people around the room. They were doing the work. We had a cadence to how we were meeting. And then we made certain decisions on what levers we were going to pull. And so far, all has been managed quite seamlessly, and the team has done a great job pulling the levers that were right for us to mitigate that headwind. So I think there's both, like, how do you remove the drama of some of these things and just say, how does it affect us? As the saying goes, control what you can control. And that's the model I like to embrace. And for leaders, like, there's no good in running around with your hair on fire and being panicked and frenetic, right? You can be urgent and calm at the same time. And that's really important for me to operate that way and to set that standard for my team.
And part of what you've described requires a level of engagement with your team, communication, where you're setting the North Star of who's supposed to be doing what, and commitment to your overall strategy in an organization like Levi's that has such an extraordinary legacy brand. How do you balance between the legacy and the power that the brand brings and the innovation and growth that is required, fueled by the increased leverage that you are getting from information that you can get from AI tools? That was kind of a long, meandering question, but you see where I'm coming from, right? There's a lot.
Absolutely.
There's steady state, and then there's growth. Is there tension there, or does one support the other?
It's, I think about it as one supports the other, but you have to be really deliberate, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to go off here and now we're doing tops and we're doing this and we're building stores, but it has to be all connected to Levi's. And, candidly, part of, call it the rituals that we do inside this company and how we operate, is honoring our past. Like, heritage is super important to us. Like, we talk about it a lot while we are moving forward, right? Because we need to move forward. Levi's is a brand that's never, been frozen in time, right? I mean, we've grown over the years. We've navigated so many. We're just talking about, things that happen in the macro environment. I mean, over 170 years, like, this company has seen a lot, and has maneuvered through many industrial revolutions. AI, we can talk about AI in a second. Here's the next one, and has come out successfully. So it's critical. And I do think, and it's something that team and I talk about a lot, that, when brands try to do what we're doing, which is to become something more than we are today, you've got to be very disciplined and very thoughtful, because we never want to dilute the brand, right? And there are many examples of brands and companies who have done that. So it always, in our work to become a lifestyle brand, we call it denim lifestyle in particular, because there's a part of the market that we are mapping out. We're not going to be everything to all people. The other piece I would say for us is we need to make sure that our brand remains at the center of culture. And over time, when Levi's has had moments where and there have been moments where the company didn't do well or the brand was less relevant, especially to the youthful generation, it was times when we lost our relevance. And so it's both the product, and making sure that we're driving the trends, and the team's doing a great job of that, and they've got to be a step ahead of the consumer, but also investing in the brand. The fact that Beyonce named a song after Levi's, that was no accident, right? I mean, it was a gift. Let me tell you, 3 months into my job, and she names the song Levi's Jeans.
She's a genius.
I mean, unbelievable, right? Like the most celebrated artist of our generation, and she names the song Levi's Jeans.
Well, I recall, Michelle, we had a board meeting shortly thereafter, and you walked into the room, and I, with other board members, were like, Beyonce, how did you pull that off?
Right. Yeah, it was unbelievable. But really, I mean, it was based on years of a relationship with Beyonce, going back to when she was part of Destiny's Child, and she was looking for brand friends, let's call it, and Levi's was a partner to her. We had a relationship back then, and we made deposits in that relationship over the years. And we could have just left it as, okay, we love the song, it's great for the brand, but then we're like, what if there's more? And so anyway, so we reached out, and within also goes back to that decisiveness and courage. And within literally a couple months, we had forged this great partnership. And we've had this fantastic campaign this year, led to some product collaborations, and it has exceeded all expectations. So, but that is center of culture. We've got a great campaign happening with Shabuzi right now. We have more next year, the year of sports. Levi Stadium is hosting the Super Bowl. You can't take this stuff for granted. You've got to deposit, and you've got to do the things that are big and bold, but you've also got to be doing the humble things to make sure that you're relevant. Because if we lose that, it is very hard to get it back.
Well, you as per usual, highlight the effort that your team at Levi's has made over the years. And I really do like this concept that you've highlighted of making deposits over time, because these relationships are built over many years and a reflection of the commitment that your former future colleagues have made and will make in the future. So one piece of advice that you would share with someone who is trying to define their leadership, and it could be the work context or a broader context, how do you discover and lean into your potential as a leader?
Oh, it's a great question. And by the way, I feel bad we didn't talk about AI, because that is big on the agenda for us.
Okay, so go there first, and then
let me just go there.
Yes.
I do think for retail, it is one of the biggest transformations that we will see in our lifetime. And as a leader, and it goes back to, one of your earlier questions on leaders, you have to stay open and curious and learning. I didn't grow up in a tech background, but I am spending so much time learning and listening so that I can help lead in this era. And we're doing all kinds of exciting things in the company, while also, by the way, respecting our 170-year heritage. Okay, so that's that. And then I guess final words of advice, I go back to servant leadership, because it is my touchstone. It's be authentic to who you are. Don't try to be someone you're not, because that ultimately all kind of comes out, right? Go after something you're passionate about, that you care about, because you're going to be doing this for a long time. Be courageous. Take the bold moves in business and in your career, because those are going to be the moments where possibilities you never imagined will unfold. Last thing I'd say is be grateful. I'm grateful every single day for what I get to do.
Well, Michelle, I have to say I am grateful. I am grateful for the opportunity to have worked alongside you on the board at PepsiCo. I am even more grateful to have you as part of my broader Medley, and to call you a real dear friend, because it is about learning, and you are very generous with sharing your perspective and your ideas, always with sort of a touch of reality and a sense of humor. You've highlighted for us a number of things. First, listening is key. This servant leadership being so important, not soft, but critically important as a North Star that guides you and should guide all of us. It's about being curious, honoring your roots. Levi's is an example of that. 173 years, lots of roots in the ground that you will continue with your colleagues to invest in, and never letting fear of the unknown keep you from learning. So thank you so much, Michelle, for joining us. And thank you, everyone who has tuned in. I think you'll agree that if we consider Michelle's journey, we are inspired to put ourselves in those situations that are groundbreaking for ourselves as individual, but even more importantly, critically important for impacting others.
Well, thank you so much, Edith. As always, so great to connect with you.